Friends. Welcome this morning. It's good to be here today. Thanks for joining us. This is Journey Home Meditation's Morning Sit. I'm Michael, and I'm happy to be here today. Let's settle in with our body and get that correct. Let's let our body and our mind and our breath all come together. Just a few breaths this morning. Bring down this bed of sound, and in fact, I'm gonna bring down all distractions that I can this morning. This morning is definitely a morning I could use all the help I can get. Let me take these off. Okay, that's a little better. I'm going to invite the bell, and at which point we can take a few breaths together. We're going to breathe in through the nose to the bottom of the belly, expanding the belly. We want to soften our core for this, soften that belly, big, soft, beautiful bellies. Part of this practice of softening the belly when we take these breaths is to release our defenses just a bit. Many of us spend a good part of our day walking around with our bellies sucked in tight. And we do that for a few reasons. The obvious one there is we have this level of insanity with an obsession of a certain body type in our culture. When I say our culture, I mean the culture, the shared dominant culture. I would say Western culture versus Eastern culture, all that. But I think at this point, with the way civilization is kind of in this quickening where it's becoming more technologically yoked, it seems that we have the same issues with this everywhere, that there are body types that are promoted as being more ideal than others. And so many of us walk around, sucking in our bellies to take up less space, to try to adhere to a more fit, thinner body type. But on a deeper subconscious, psychological, and spiritual level, we hold in those muscles in our gut. We strengthen our core and suck in our gut that way when we are feeling attacked. And so taking a moment just to recognize how often I am behaving in crisis or behaving in defense mechanism, in protection mode, um, is a really important step towards understanding exactly what it is that I'm defending myself from. It's important, but it's hard to know that when you're just building walls. So let's take a few breaths and break down some walls today. I'm going to invite the bell. Breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly. When we breathe out entirely. And breathing in. And breathing out. And breathing in. And breathing out. As I'm sitting here, uh, and there's all these different scenarios, these thoughts, these planes of consciousness that are occurring at once with any of us, right? And as I'm sitting here, I'm having all of these things that seem like dualities. They seem like contradictions, which I love. I love the contradictions in the sense that Whitman-esque sense of understanding that the more I can recognize these contradictions, the more I can understand just how large we are. We contain more than one aspect of truth in any moment, right? But as I'm sitting here, I'm hearing the chatter of loud voices right outside of the meditation hall, and there's a part of me that wants to open the door and say, "Hey, can you please quiet down? We're doing a meditation session in here." But there's another part of me that recognizes that what is occurring in this moment is no different than what's occurring inside of myself, which probably means it's what's occurring inside of each of us at any given moment. And that is this incessant chatter that we want to get away from. This oppression of sound, of noise, rather, not sound. This is maybe this is important actually to clarify. It's the noise that exists in our consciousness, our psyche, our psychology, or whatever it is that we want to call that. It's the noise that keeps us from settling into stillness. And that's true in the world and inside. Because there are sounds that, like in the beginning of these sessions, I play, pre recorded sounds. Um, and these sounds are generally considered to be peaceful and calming and bring us into a certain mindset and a certain space for our practice. It's like the bell, the meditation bell. It's another method, another tool that we use to bring our consciousness into this plane of existence. Stepping out of the shopping list in our head, stepping away from the regret of something we said in seventh grade, stepping out of all of the fears and anxieties that exist in any moment for any of us as we get to approach our day. The meditation bell, much like the sounds of chanting or of rain or the ocean, these things can bring us into one layer of consciousness where we aren't being sucked away by those other noises. But the temptation is often to just get away from that noise, to try to control or domineer um, the situation so that we can create that ideal space. And then my mind goes to the next layer of that. What are you creating? What is it that we are creating this ideal space for? What is ideal about this? Um, it's just another example of the ways in which I run from what is. And I was thinking about that a lot this morning, even before this, and it's maybe why my thoughts are influenced towards that direction already. I'm already having a bias of thinking in this way, but I was thinking about how the last few days I've really been kind of spiraling into this internal space of suffering, this space of um, emotional noise, and um, this kind of fear-based existence that I have occasionally. I touch. I mean, I always have, but I touch into it occasionally. Somehow, you know, the tuning gets just right on the radio dial, and something comes through more clearly. And right for me, the last few days, what is coming through really clearly is this suffering of loneliness and resentment, and and this brings with it all sorts of different coping mechanisms that I've learned over my life. We all learn these coping mechanisms over our life. When we're young, that coping mechanism may be to throw a fit, to scream and yell. You learn that. That coping mechanism may be to avoid and hide. You shut down and get shy, or hide in your closet, or under your blankets, whatever. That coping mechanism may be to go for the sugary sweet foods, or the binge eating, or the binge TV watching, which now is, if the TV is in our pockets. So that makes that even easier. So whatever it is, when we get into that spiral of that space where we kind of get stuck in the noise, when I get stuck in the noise, you start finding ways to get away from that noise as quickly as you can. And I don't know anybody really that I've spoken with at length. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would disagree with this statement, but most people that I have spoken with about this subject, who have been vulnerable and open and explored different layers of honesty, would say that they have at times in their lives considered self-harm, or acted on self-harm, or have considered suicidal ideations, and have um, contemplated these things. And I bring this up to say that I don't think that this is an abnormal thing for a human being to have occur in their thoughts. It's present in the culture. It's something that most of us have been touched by. So the idea that we want to avoid even talking about that, it just gives it this layer of mystique, this layer of existence that um, can almost make it another hiding place. And it's interesting to when our thought processes can become a hiding place from our thought processes. Uh, and so as I'm experiencing this over the last few days, I'm well aware of the layers and the levels of consciousness that my mind is taking me through, and the places in which I'm trying to hide. And this concept of getting away from the noise, it could lead to that end. It does lead to that end result for some people. And so it's important, I think, if we can talk about it, not in a sense of talking about prevention, but talking about it in a sense of um, opening up the discourse around it so that there's a light being shined upon it, because it's less likely that we hide in the bright places. So that's something I've been considering a lot the last couple of days, is how interesting is it that we can even turn what we think is the present moment into our enemy. You know, a lot of the work that's done around meditation and mindfulness, and a lot of the work that's done around trauma, and recovery from trauma, recovery from substance use disorder, all these things. Really, what we're talking about when we're talking about that is stepping back from one specific coping mechanism and trying to find pathways into um, more acceptable coping mechanisms, because that's really what's being offered in a lot of these programs and a lot of these conversations is replacement copes. And as I was sitting there this morning, I was thinking, just breathe into the present moment. And then there's a thought, a strong thought that's no, that's the last place you want to be, because the present moment right now is suffering. The present moment right now is pain. And then there's the next voice that comes in that's like, yes, so be with the pain. But then a deeper truth started showing itself to me, is that the suffering and the pain is not the present moment actually. It's me being anywhere but here. It's me taking that fear, that anxiety, that feeling of self-loathing, and using that as the coping mechanism, as the hiding place. This is where I'm now hiding. Now I'm hiding in the suffering. I'm hiding in the anger. I'm hiding in the resentment. And I'm hiding in the noise. And it was a profound moment, really, for myself to remove the judgment of the present moment and this feeling of having to be in the present moment. Because then I was reminded that, you know what? It's okay. The times that we have to step out of the present moment can be okay. But when you get stuck in that place and you start to convince yourself that the present moment is suffering, the present moment is pain, um, if I can remember in that moment, which it's difficult to do, but if I can remember that even that is a thought, even that is a thought. And, like Ram Dass said, we're only one thought away from now. We're always just one thought away from now. But if we are punishing ourselves to get away, we're still running away. We're still in that cycle. So hiding in the method is an interesting and really adaptive way that my own ego has evolved. It evolves and adapts as well. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Sitting in an echo chamber. I mean, I could put on my headphones and I would just hear my own voice even louder in my own head. But I do have an announcement to make. I think that the Beside Meditation Hall is going to be transitioning into another use. We're going to be finding another use for it within Journey Home for the community. Um, the the hard truth is that it's just not being utilized. Um, People don't seem to have an interest in showing up for these practices, whether it's meditation or dance or yoga. Um, there's just not many people that are coming in enough to justify the resources required to maintain this space as a meditation hall. And I would be lying if I didn't say that there's a part of my heart that's breaking about that. I was very happy to have this space open. It was kind of the culmination of years of dreaming um, and a vision that I had had that we could start creating community conversations around these ideas, these breathing practices together, these meditation practices that have been taught from cultures all over the world for thousands upon thousands of years. And I thought that this would be an opportunity for this community to have this. But an opportunity is only an opportunity if it's something that's wanted. Uh, it's only a gift if it's received. So it's become clear that um, we haven't quite found the way to be received with these practices in this area. Um, and, there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think that poverty is a huge um, sinkhole of community. It's within impoverished areas that people are so beaten down and trained away from community, away from working together, feeling so worthless or like they have nothing to offer because they're told that they have nothing over and over again. So poverty is a big part of that all over the world, and in this culture it's becoming more and more ubiquitous. And that poverty affects the soul more than anything else. The person's ability to touch into the beauty and the divine nature of who each of us are gets buried under all of the other casualties of class war, and so that's a part of it. And then I think that most of us have just been so well trained and accustomed to turning to isolation as our coping mechanism. There's a lot of people I know that tell me that they do these practices. A lot of people that I talk to. There's not a day that goes by I don't have conversations with somebody talking about all of the practices that we're um, kind of facilitating here. And I never see them at them. I never see them here. I never see them at any of them in public. And most people will say, I have my own practice. It's a very solitary practice, personal practice. And there's just so much that's sacrificed in that. There's so much that's missing. So many opportunities are gone when we aren't coming together with what we have to offer. I was raised in poverty, and I was raised at a time when a lot of people were poor, in a community where a lot of people were losing their jobs as the factories shut down. It's Reaganomics in the 80s, in middle America. And the Midwest was like these landmines were going off all around us. as entire communities that were once working towards middle class status were now quickly dropping into poverty, drug addiction, um, all of the things that occurs when poverty comes to town. And one thing I remember clearly as a kid is potlucks, because it was at the potlucks that everybody at the church got to eat the same things together. Um, we always had, when we were kids, we had friends in the neighborhood, and there was the one kid in the neighborhood whose house might have snacks, might have fresh fruit or popsicles, uh, whatever it was. Um, and so there's this knowledge that you inherit, that you're not one of those families that have all of those things all the time. But at the potluck, everybody has everything all at once. And saved lives, those potlucks. They saved lives. Saved my life. Not because I was starving at home, because I wasn't, but it saved my life because it made me remember that even when I want to believe that I'm experiencing this alone, that I'm not. There's a table full of offerings, and there's a room full of people receiving, and they're sharing. And that was a place that I was welcome. And that made a difference. And to this day, it makes a difference. And it's just so profoundly heartbreaking to be in the reality that so many people who have so much to offer hide away in their homes and in their phones. And there's this beautiful space, and it's just not being used. There's a grief group every week that has an empty table now. It used to be full. Now the tables are empty. There's the life support group on Mondays that it has both online and in-person options. And even that, people can't find their way home. They can't find their way into sharing. They're so ashamed of all of the noise inside of themselves. They're so terrified of what it can look like to open that up. And so as I sat for the last few days in this spiral of going through all of these really difficult emotions and thoughts and ideations and all of these things, that's what kept me seeking, was knowing that even alone is just a thought. And thought is always just one breath away from here and now. Let's invite the bell and take a breath. Just have that mantra: I have arrived. I am home. Thanks for being here this morning. I'm going to be taking a hiatus from sharing these practices soon. I might not be back this week because of the community meal that we are all co-facilitating on Thursday. And I'll be quite busy in the preparations for that. But yeah, there's over 4 years of these offerings provided free online. So if you are enjoying any of these practices, you can just go through the archive on any of the sites where you might find this. There's over 300 hours of practices. So there's no shortage for you to peruse at your leisure. If you'd like to engage, liking, sharing, following, all of that is helpful in that method. Um, if not, that's okay. Thanks for being around, and yeah, take care.